we promised we will solve the latest X-Wing, right? The third one. So let's do that. This guy in here probably will need reframing as well. You see how we keep on sculpting this shot. So I will just reposition it a tiny bit. So that's where I would like it to be. So maybe what I could do in here, I guess I could duplicate the control so that I have a reference point, and then I could hit Shift P on my keyboard to set it free in the world. Because the thing is, when you duplicate something which is under a group, even if it's referenced, it will stay under the group. So we'll hit Shift P, and now it's free in the world. And now that gives me, you see, a point of view. This is another control in there, which I will use only as a point of reference, let's say, as a reference point. So now the thing is, we would need another curve, but we don't really want to have that curve, do we? So I will show you something else. One thing that we could do, for instance, if we could go into the X-Wing, find the control, and this is a control, but you see that the control itself has a couple of attributes, one of which is called control vis. See what happens if I enable control vis? You see it gives me an additional set of controls, one of which is what we would call an offset. So we would be able to move the spaceship. So I guess the plan could be, we could constrain the bigger control to the curve, as in the previous X-Wings, right? The smallest one. Then we could move the offset to position the spaceship where it needs to be. I think that could be a plan. So I will grab the master control for the spaceship. So not the offset, but the master control, which is called XWing 003 flying control in this case. I will select it first, then select the motion path last, go constrain, motion paths, attach to motion path. And the front axis we set was Z, so I will set it up already in here in the windows of the motion path, and I will hit apply. You will see that the X-Wing will disappear, because of course it's now flying along the motion path. There you go, it's going over there. Not a big deal. We know where it should be. It should be where this locator was, where this control was left as a reference point. Now we have to go to the beginning and just account for its animation. So we'll go up there in the middle of nothing, and we'll go find X-Wing 003 flight control. And the idea is that this guy was a bit left behind, right? He was the sort of the badass pilot who flies alone. So I will just position it a bit further out as we start the animation. And you will see that even if I move the offset control a bit further out, as I move on with the animation, as I go to the next frame, for instance, this guy flies down with the other X-Wings. Except it is going much faster. So let's find it out. Why? The other X-Wings are getting from frame 1, where they are at 0 on the U value, to frame 200, where they are at 51. So one thing that I can do, I guess, is to grab the master of the X-Wing, the main handle, this guy here, the little delta there. Make sure that when I open the motion path there, on frame 1 it's at 0, and on frame 200 is more or less at the same position, dot 51, so that it will end up at the same position of the other guys. Maybe I can make it a bit faster in the end, but let's see first with the same speed. So now, if I check the viewport, I expect the three guys to go down together, you see? Same speed. So that's not too bad. So now we have two guys' information in front of us. It's very easy to mess up the camera, so one thing you can do is you can lock it up here, clicking on the padlocked camera icon up there. And also you can disable auto key so that you don't mistakenly move stuff at this stage. It's very important to be conscious of what we do. So now we have the X-Wing up there, the last X-Wing. I feel like maybe the camera could frame a bit higher at the beginning just because we're a bit too close to the edge. So I could grab camera aim and unlock the camera and then move the camera aim up a bit more, like so. Press S to key the camera aim and lock the camera. And now the three spaceships are a bit better framed. There you go. There you go. Now I just feel that the idea was that this guy was supposed to pass here, right? Where we left this handle. So I guess that while at the beginning we can even leave it a lot more behind and set a key probably, at the end, say here in this position, we want the guy to end up passing up over here. However, we want a tiny break between the first two X-Wings and the last one. So I can count and see maybe maybe we can take about we can allocate 7 frames for the audience to read the flag, and then the third X-wing can pass by. So these two X-wings are gone now at 177, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's when I expect the other X-wing to come by. I will go to 184, go grab the other X-wing, find out where is this guy gone. You see, he's far behind, so we'll just move it forward, set a key, and you see it keeps on going. So I'm a bit cheating if you think of it, because while we are not framing it, we are pushing forward the last X-wing, but no one is going to notice that because no one will be able to see that, right? Now I am going to position the X-wing more or less to where the handle was. The handle we duplicated, and you see that's sort of working for us. Maybe I don't want it to bank that much, and because simply because that would cover the silhouette of the X-wing, and I want the X-wing to be this big on frame. And let's see if I can, maybe this way could work. There you go. So let we see all the both sets of guns, and the X-wing is fairly close to us. I can even move it a bit closer. Why not? Be careful. The closer you put it into the camera, and the slower it will have to go. Because if it's very close and very fast, it will stay on screen just 1 frame. Let's check. Now it's going in 1 frame, 2 frames, 3 frames, 4 frames, 5 frames, 4 frames. So I think the speed is not too bad. I think it could be better, but it's not too bad. Whenever you have a character entering the screen, it is a good idea, in my opinion, to just make it enter the screen with just a bit of the character, just to introduce the direction from which the character is coming in to the audience, so that they have time to realize something is coming in. So a tiny bit of the character on the first frame, and then some more on the second frame, and then of course the whole package comes later. So maybe I could even make this animation a bit longer, so that we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames, still 4 frames in there. So I will move it even more to the right. I can use the dope sheet. That seems a better tool for this situation. So I will just go grab the keys in here, and that's the key I have on about 191. Select the key, middle mouse drag, and you see I drag it to the right until I get 1/5 frame with the spaceship. So that now I have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames on screen, and we are clearly telling the audience where we're coming from with the tip of the spaceship coming into frame, where we're going with the spaceship crossing the frame, and also where we are leaving with the engines poking in from the right hand side of the screen. So now I just need to check that the speed makes sense, and also I will want to make sure that the third guy looks a bit more like a badass as he flies. So maybe I can push it a bit further out of formation and make it dive a bit deeper, like so, and set a key, so that as the two guys are diligently flying together, the third guy there is just doing its own thing. It's running its own show, and we can see that he's detaching from the formation, leaving frame, and then we are following just the two guys, and the last guy will come as a surprise at the end. Sort of a surprise to us, but to the audience, that may be a surprise. Now, let's check if that makes some sense. So you see we have the third guy flying off formation and then zooming by. That's sort of cool. So there you go. Let's see. Maybe I don't want it to accelerate that fast past the guys, so I can just delay it and just make him move a bit further out, as if he's actually going in some other direction. There you go. So they go by, and the last man comes on screen. Now, I think we could delay it a bit more. So I guess I could retime the animation so that we leave a bit more of a break between the two X-wings and the badass pilot. I think it feels a bit too fast. Maybe I will make a playlist just to be sure that it's not just my impression or it's not my viewport. There you go. Let's see if that works, and if so, how. Yeah, I think we can leave a tiny bit more gap between the two guys and the third X-Wing. So I will go and grab the marker of the X-Wing, the handle which is following the path, open up the path, and make sure that maybe as the guy comes on frame here at 182, I have a key. I will open up the animation graph editor, and what I will do is I will set a key on the U value there. And you see that as I set a key, the curve is sort of changing shape. That's a bit of a bummer. That's a Maya behavior. So if I right click and key selected, the curve is sort of changing shape. One way to prevent Maya from behaving this way is to, in the graph editor, is to click on this second button from the top left. It's called Insert Keys tool, and the middle mouse button on 182 on the curve where I need the key. And you see now I have a key which is perfect and doesn't really change the conformation, let's say, of the curve. Then I go at 196, grab the motion path again and select it here in the graph editor. To zoom horizontally, Alt Shift and right mouse button. Vertically, Alt Shift and right mouse button again, but you drag vertically. And then I click on the second button from the top left, middle mouse click on the curve, and now I should have the same keys selected. So now I could maybe hold down Shift and select the offset, and I could grab this at the keys. Actually, let's grab 200 as well. And I could just move everything, say 4 or 5 frames to the right, and hopefully that will have worked in delaying the spaceship. Bit of a break, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 frames, exactly the animation we had earlier on. So let's press play and see how that looks like. There you go. I think that works a lot better. So we gave the audience a bit of time to reflect on what happened, and then we come in with a surprise, the latest X-Wing. So that's sorted. Now we have the animation of the X-Wings sorted. I think that any director worthy of that name would probably say, yes, they're X-Wings, but hey, there should be exhaust on those engines, right? I think it's really a good point. And if you think of it, you see there are these 4 controls at the back of the engines. It seems like they could serve the purpose, right? But I don't see any exhaust in there. So I want to analyze the rig a bit better for a second. I don't really need this guy here. It was just a reference point for us. We can delete it. And if I select the offset and I go in the channel box, you see that there is in the offset there isn't much going on. So I will have to check the master of the spaceship, which is this guy here. And if you select it, you see that just like we enabled and disabled this additional control earlier on, we can grab the exhaust V's, this other control, and set it on. And that shows the exhausts. In fact, you will find out that in many rigs, a lot of the advanced controls really are hidden by default because, I mean, you don't necessarily need those, right? In this case, I think we kind of need those. So I will select the two main controls for the other X-Wings, and I will make sure the exhausts are visible in there as well. There you go, I set the visibility to 1, and now we have the exhaust visible on screen as well. You see they look a lot more present on screen, not just the exhaust but the X-Wings themselves. With this visible, I can maybe even enable the visibility of the controls, the additional controls there. But with this visible, one trick we can play, if you look at it from this point of view, make sure that we don't show anything in the viewport apart from the polygons. You see that these guys are very tiny on screen, very difficult to see them. So I think I will need some sort of way to make them more visible, to warn the audience that they should look in that direction. One such way is to grab all of these controls for the engines, so both for the badass pilot and the two guys information. So I will grab these 4 controls and I will hit R and I will just scale them a lot bigger, and I will just actually this way so that they are much wider, like so. They are much more visible, so that even on a small frame, you see up there, now they become visible. If I compare the now with before, you see before they're very inconspicuous, but if we scale them up a lot more on the X and Y, now they are very visible on screen as they track along. So I can press S, set the key on the scale, so now these guys are much bigger on screen, you see. And maybe as they approach, I can cheat and I can scale them down. After all, the X-Wings are getting bigger, so I don't need to play that trick any longer. And as they approach the screen where it will be visible that we're cheating a lot in here, what I can do is I can just make them a bit longer and scale them a bit slimmer, like so. So that, and press S of course, so that no one will notice we are playing a trick in there to make the X-Wings more visible, but they still will be very visible. And by the time they are so close to the camera, maybe we can just reduce the jet engine a tiny bit, and then it will just go by and the third guy will come in. So now if I check the animation here, you see that they are visible from the very beginning. There you go. And you cannot really be mistaken. I just feel that maybe they're a bit slow at the beginning, and that's because if you go and grab the motion path for those X-Wings, you will find out, unfortunately, that by default Maya is dropping down a flat tangent in there. So that means that there is an easy ease out. The spaceships will they slowly accelerate. If I press Q to select items in Maya, select this tangent and middle mouse drag it up above, you will find out that the X-Wings will be much faster in coming down. You see that the third guy, which I didn't tweak yet, is much slower, is lagging behind. So I can grab the control for the third guy, select the key, select the tangent, middle mouse button the tangent up, and that makes the spaceships go a bit faster at the beginning. So now they will be going down a lot faster altogether, probably. There you go. They also look like for a second they are in a formation, I guess. With this kind of camera movements, it is always a good idea to have some reference points because it may feel that the camera is smooth or maybe it feels that the camera is weird, but if you don't have a reference point in the background, you will never know if it's your objects which are moving in a weird way or the camera. So in this case, I think we would need some clouds in the background or some reference sky. What I can do is I can create a new plane. So create polygon primitives plane, make a bigger plane up there. Make sure that I rotate it so that the gray face is facing my camera and move it up. But you see that we're, there you go. But you see that the moment I move out, I don't see it anymore because of the clipping plane. So select the camera, attribute editor, add one more zero to the clipping plane, and make sure that also the new camera has a lot of zeros in the clipping plane so that it can frame this guy. And the new clip plane, we set it to 1 for the new camera. So now I can move this guy, well, this kind of panel that I want to be the sky, somewhere where the camera can see it, but right now it's very difficult because the camera, we don't know where it's framing. It seems like it's framing in that direction. So maybe I could put this guy there and rotate it a tiny bit. Will make it a lot bigger and a lot further out. There you go. And again, a lot bigger. So that's going to be my sky, which looks very close to the X-Wings, but really it's not. We want to make sure that that plane covers the whole screen. So from the beginning to the end. There you go. And that is indeed what it's doing. I can right click on it, assign a new material, and create a Lambert. And in the color, I will just click on the checkerboard and I will add, you see, a checker texture. That should give us some reference point, which I can make a bit more dense. If I click on this triangle with the with a triangle on the left hand side pointing to the right, and in here I can set the repeat UV value to say 10 and 10. That's going to repeat the texture, maybe 10 and 15. There you go. So now we have a clear reference point, and what we can do is we can just play blast this animation and see if the camera movement is weird or if it was just an illusion, and if in any case what needs fixing and what not. The play blast is ready, so let's have a look at it. And you see that the camera is not too bad. If you track the checkerboard, you feel that the camera is sort of smooth. There is a bit of a jerk in this area where it accelerates, but it sort of makes sense considering the two guys are speeding as well. Maybe it stops a bit too abruptly in the end, just glues itself there on the end frame. So maybe what we could do is we could grab the camera aim locator in here. And one trick that you can do in this case is with the camera glue a bit too hard on the end of the animation is you want to check that in the graph editor the end tangents are set to flat, which they were already. And another trick that you can play is you can go maybe to a few frames before the end, say 171, set a key by pressing S, and then move the last frame a bit later. You see you get a bit of a softer slowdown in there, which is interesting. Another thing you can do is maybe simulate the fact that the cameraman will still have the camera moving a bit after this point. So maybe I could go say to frame 192 and maybe have the camera move a tiny bit to the left. We prevent the camera from completely sticking at the end of the motion. It seems a bit more realistic.